What's up, Crusaders? Man, I am so dang excited for who we have in today's career chat. This guy, he is such an inspiration to me. He's going to be an inspiration to you once when you get to learn about his story and stuff. He's super humble. He has no clue, I think, the impact that he's making for the future generation of this industry. I'm dead serious about this. You guys know I've been doing this a very long time, and I'm so excited that he is where he's at in his career and who he is. He's the greatest young fella that I know out here on the road. I'm touring with him right now with the Jonas Brothers, our lighting director, Jonathan D. Martin. Welcome, man.
What's up, Kenny? So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, thanks for being here. We're actually in the same hotel right now, by the way. He's on a
Yeah, we
different
are.
floor. I'm downstairs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, got the suite. I don't. Um,
I
but you know what?
have a little cheese plate up here as well.
He's
A
got a
little cheese plate,
yeah.
we're living
Well,
it.
yeah, well, you deserve it, man. I'm so stoked
Oh,
for you. By the way, I just want to start out of the gate so we can just get the elephant in the room out of the way. Jonathan had his birthday, what, like 3 weeks ago?
yep, yep.
He's 19 years old, and he is the captain, the LD, running the ship uh, with the lighting rig on the Jonas Brothers. Not to mention, just to throw some credentials out there, we can talk more about how you got there in just a second, but Carrie Underwood, the freaking Super Bowl. I mean, look, that's what I'm saying. He's humble, but I know he understands. I know you understand, Jonathan, the connections and the network and the work that you're doing. However, man, I think that you are a living example of something that we desperately need in this industry. And I think that you're making a bigger impact than you probably will give yourself credit for. So I got to know, where are you from? Where were you born?
Yeah, so I was born in Texas, all right, but really my hometown is in Connecticut. I'm a Northeast guy. I love being close to New York. Growing up, I had the opportunity to see a lot of theater, both in the city and in the surrounding areas, and that was really a big part of what inspired me to get into the world of production in the first place. Yeah, I love that.
Are you the youngest in your family? How big is your family? Are you an only
Yeah.
child?
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm the middle child. I have two siblings. My brother is a little younger than me. My sister's a little older. And yeah, I was homeschooled, which was a really big part of my journey, and a very unique situation to be in because it allowed me to just a lot of extra time to really dive in and develop the skill sets that have been so beneficial to me, both in my career and personally. You
Hmm.
know, yeah.
That's amazing in his career, guys. I mean, he's certainly has a career. Because I'll tell you this: you've been working with me for a while now. You've been following me for a while, which I want to get there as well in the conversation. But it is about career, and it is not just about doing the work. It's about really loving what you do and being connected to it, being able to be creative, and having the work fulfill you in ways that a paycheck could never have. I mean, that's the case. When he says career, it's not about longevity. Did you know if you look up career in the dictionary, dude, it
Mm,
literally says doing something for a long period of time. You haven't done this
mm,
for a long period of time, but
very true.
you've carved out a career at this, and people
Mm.
really trust you in your position. So I gotta know, man, when was like the very first like spark to events and stuff like that? I mean, how old were you?
Yeah. Well, there's one specific moment, but before that, I have to say that even as a child, like 7, 8 years old, going to community theater and these places, my parents will tell you that I was always more fascinated by the lights than I was with what was happening on stage. And just continually, I loved light. I loved how how stories could be told through it. I was often just staring, up at the ceiling the entire time, looking at what the lights were doing, how they were doing it. But I
How
will
old were
say
you?
that about 7 or 8 years old.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say that but fast forward a couple years, the moment that it kind of hit me, it was a couple days after my 13th birthday. And my dad and I drove 6 hours up to Buffalo, New York from our home in Connecticut. And we saw U2's Joshua Tree tour live in concert. And that was the moment when I was like, this is what I want to do. It was my first experience viewing a show of that scale. I think it might still hold the record as the longest LED wall in concert touring history. It might be broken by now, but at the time it was. And the lighting and production design by Willie Williams was just such an inspiration to me. And I kind of left that being like, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to really dive into.
So wait, you're 6 years ago now.
Yes.
6 years ago, you and your dad was at this concert. Did you tell him? Like, were you like, Dad, that looks so cool? Is that something people do and I could do? I mean, somebody has to feed resource, right?
Oh, for sure. And I did. I even actually remember on the drive up to the concert, my dad was like, he's like, the lighting that you're going to see, at tomorrow's show is something like you've never experienced before. You've seen this small scale stuff, you've seen this, but it's like tomorrow it's going to be on a whole nother level. And I have to say that my family and my parents are some of the most supportive people in my entire personal and professional journey. I mean, they've been the reason I've been able to get to these spaces at such a young age, 100%.
I would imagine so, man. I mean, I would imagine so. Your parents sound like wonderful people. Actually, I got to meet your mom. How cool was that? What a pleasure. I mean, a lot of people don't have that type of support at home, and you were homeschooled and all that. In the homeschooling curriculum, what type of curriculum was that? And did any of it feed this?
Yeah. Actually, if you look at my high school transcript, which I do have like an official high school transcript, it actually has credits for lighting technology and like lighting design careers. We essentially partnered with some local, resources in the community to create a curriculum program through what I was doing with different, churches and theaters to actually give me like educational credit for that, which was really, really cool.
That's amazing. And your parents probably helped you or figure that out with you or for you.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. 100%. Yeah. It was a lot of work. They did an amazing job.
What a cool thing. Imagine that, Crusaders, like your parents going, oh, wow. I mean, my 13-year-old wants to do this for a living and literally helps put that type of education right in front of you and then making it credible as something that you can launch at. So from there, you're 13, you go to U2 and you tell your dad you want to do this. They start helping you feed your education by structuring some classes and stuff like that. What did the next 3 years look like? Like, what was 3 years of growth from 13 to 16?
Yeah. So kind of immediately after that U2 experience, I grew up very involved in a church community at a church in Connecticut. We're not a mega church by Southern or Nashville standards, but a pretty substantial size, about 1,500, more or less, attended weekly. And they had a lighting rig, and that was where I started volunteering at around 13, 14 years old. I learned the basics of both just general stage production, pushing road cases, starting to learn safety cables, how to, run a follow spot, how to hang a source for, a conventional light. But the most, important part of that was the mentors that I got to start working with. It was my first experience working with people who knew a lot more than I did and who were willing to share that knowledge. And they're still some of my best friends to this day, some of my biggest supporters. But in that initial time frame, I started playing around with color theory, like learning what looks good. I had the opportunity to step into a lighting designer role for some of the smaller services at this church, just kind of learning both physically how to accomplish this outcome, right, of creating a service, but also how to navigate the challenges of working with a group of people, right, to create a vision for these services. And
well,
I would say Yep.
man, stop you right there. And I'm so sorry. I get so fascinated by this because, man, you're 14 years old and the
Yep.
church, like you come to the church and obviously small town, I assume. I mean, you've been to this
Yep.
church for a long time, so they know that your parents are feeding you this education and this sort of support. And so I'm sure the
Yep.
conversation is pretty fluid with you saying, hi, I want to get my hands on this stuff, and then them
Mhm.
opening that door for you. How difficult would it be if someone else that might be
Mm.
watching this wants to just cold approach their church? Like would
Yeah.
you have any advice for that at this stage?
Yeah, I am I think that churches are one of the best places to get involved um to learn live event production because both on a surface level, I like to say the Lord's pockets are deep. A lot of these churches have the resources
Mm-hmm.
to, for you to learn, and that's not something you can find in every venue all the time. The other thing is that churches tend to rely heavily on volunteers to run their services on a day-to-day. They will often have paid staff, paid production staff, production directors, coordinators. Some churches might even have lighting and sound, production department heads on their staff. But for the most part, they're very volunteer based. And it's a really good opportunity for people to, come to these circles and be like, I really want to, learn, but I also, I want to help you guys out as well. And it's a mutually beneficial experience. Definitely, it's one of the few places where someone my age can have that access to, to gear and that kind of stuff. So whenever I'm chatting with folks who are a little younger than me or in kind of the same position, I really love pointing them towards that spot because, especially for someone who's under age legally, it's a really good spot to start getting involved and learning the ropes. And you can pick up some good morals too. I mean, it's not a bad place to be hanging around.
I love that. I love that so much. I mean, you were 14, Matt, 14 years
Yep.
old, and they obviously you had the communication ability and certainty within yourself, the confidence within yourself, and the hunger to want to learn and do this, and you were able to literally ask and communicate that. I mean, that's would have had to go a long way with them feeling confident in you. Um, at what point did you feel your learning curve really level up?
Mm. I would say when I was about 15, 16 years old, which it's only a couple years ago, which is still kind of strange to talk about. But at that point, I had the opportunity. They basically took a leap of faith in me and said, hey, could you design a special event that we were having at their main auditorium, right? That sat, about 1,000 people. And quite a large lighting rig. It was my first time ever doing that. And I remember I showed up to the event to rehearsal, and I had never run lights in this space before, but I had been going there for quite a few years. So I understood how the space felt and what looked good in it, but I'd never been on the control side. I didn't know how to do most of the stuff. And I took about the 2 or 3 hours before the event started, and I basically learned how to do it. I kind of just sat there. The production director came in, who was really an audio guy. He didn't really know a ton about how the lighting was in the building. I was kind of a replacement for somebody who wasn't able to do it. And he was like, are you good? And I'm like, we have 2 hours till the event. I'm going to figure out how to do this, and it's going to be great. And that was at that point, I felt like I kind of started to see that exponential growth, because after that, they started letting me step into more creative roles for Sunday services, for larger events, for traveling concerts. And the other thing that happened in that time frame, kind of the 15, 16 time frame, was I started to have the opportunity to mentor people who were older than me, who were actively doing lighting. And that was a unique experience that I feel like really prepared me for the situations that I'm in today, where I'm working with primarily people who are older, sometimes substantially older than I am.
Yes, and
And
real quick, Jonathan, to that point, first of all, did you get imposter syndrome during all this? Like, I asked that because when you get older in your life, okay, like
Yeah.
you start to go through different challenges, and some you meet head on and some just overtake you in your life, and you really struggle to sometimes like bounce back from that confidence because of the fact that like you didn't make it, it didn't happen for you. And so I know that like you've had all of this support, and you're pretty young, you're really young, and you've had a lot of wins. I mean, at some point,
Yeah.
like did even in your young naivety mind, I would say,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
did you get any sort of doubt and heavy doubt, and like I'm not even sure if this is I'm gonna pull this off? I mean, you didn't have any reason
Oh,
otherwise to believe you wouldn't.
for sure. I mean, I think that there's always moments, and that time was a real time of learning for me. I remember there was one service when I accidentally turned all the lights off in the middle of a song. I hit the wrong button, you know. And I again, and so yeah, there were definitely moments when I was like, you know, it was really a time of exploration for me. You know, I didn't know if I wanted to do this, if I wanted to go into more, you know, audio or graphic related. Lighting was what originally drew me in, and that's what I started with. But I was very open to other possibilities, you know. And there were also a lot of moments just learning how to work with people, like I was saying, working with people who were older than me.
Right.
But sometimes, I mean, sometimes they honestly did not know as much as I did about how the system worked or about what looks good. And so, you know, the opportunity to work to learn how to like work with that and work with people who were both older than me and just people in general.
Mhm.
um I mean, that's really what that time was all about for me. In addition to the obviously the practicalities and learning, you know, how to take this to a larger level.
Right. And you know, that is the game of it, isn't it? It is like being able to learn as much as you can, and then share it with someone else, because that reinforces your learning. And then of course you mentioned being able to mentor people that were older than you, definitely probably gave you some of this humbleness that we're seeing, because you got to be able to learn how to communicate without that sort of ego. Um,
Yeah,
could
that's very important for sure.
Yeah, yeah, very important, man. And I think a lot of times, even people that have had long careers get a lot of ego in their position because of
Mhm.
fighting for it, and they feel like they have to really voice it. But your skills really, the results of your skills really was the thing that was mentoring. How did you really feel like you rapidly learned all those different things? I mean, was there some, you mentioned the color theory opportunity
Mhm.
and stuff like that, like if someone was in your position right now where they're wanting to try to deepen their knowledge, specialize and stuff, I mean, what's the best way to that with church, I guess, to go about really enhancing that knowledge?
Yeah. Well, I think no matter what environment you are learning in, or what sector you're learning in, and whatever your interest, you know, whatever the realm that you're interested in, I really took that time and I started reading a lot. And I went online and I found a lot of. I felt like at that point I kind of hit like a little, you know, a little thing of I need somebody who really knows more, you know, who knows more in a professional sense, in the world that's outside, you know, the church production world that I've known so far. And so I really started researching a lot of these books, and that's where I started to learn things like color theory,
Mhm.
um, and kind of more technical skills about even the practicalities, like how to program lighting. A lot of the terminology that we use in the field, both lighting specific and production, I learned um, through reading a lot of these books. I can think of Brad Schiller, who is a lighting programmer. He wrote two books that I read, Moving Light Programmer's Handbook and then Living the Lighting Life. Both of those books were really, really helpful. Lighting Programmer was more around the practicalities of how to, like the terminologies and how to program lighting. But the Lighting Life was really helpful because it taught me how this industry works a lot without being in it. Um, and I feel like that combined with more access to, I really started using the internet. You know, YouTube is amazing. So many people have posted amazing content out on YouTube. You know,
You
if
have a
Crew
channel, right?
Coach was a thing, when I I do have a channel, yeah. Yeah, Jonathan D. Martin. Very exciting. I posted a lot of tutorials and stuff. Actually, one of the things I did was as I was learning software, I would immediately after I learned something about it, I would make a tutorial about it. And that was like one of the ways that I really got it into my brain while
Yeah.
also helping others.
Serving up.
And I will say that during that time frame, when I was 15, 16, if crew coach had been a thing, I would have signed up like ASAP. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
Really, really amazing. But
I appreciate
yeah, that's kind of that time frame for me, was really starting to realize this is what I wanted to do and how to take that to the next level.
Now, when did you're 16 at this point? When did you finally finish high school?
Yeah, so I graduated when I was 17, just because of when my birthday fell. I wasn't some exceptionally smart student or something. Just I happened to graduate when I was 17, and which was actually really interesting because I didn't I wasn't able to legally work in touring or anything like this immediately after I graduated, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, and that time frame, like 16 to 17, was really kind of when I really started to, double down. I was like, I knew what my goal was. I wanted to do this professionally. I wasn't sure quite in what capacity,
Mhm.
but I really started to dive in. And at that point, it kind of coincided that our my church was looking to do some upgrades on a lighting uh, front, and they actually hired me. I became the youngest ever staff member at the church. I was brought on. I was like the first ever paid production intern, I think, to basically kind of spearhead this redesign of their lighting, and work alongside their production team and a key industry mentor, my good friend Adam Bisco of Strictly FX, really, really great guy who happened to live very close to the church and attend the church. And he's become a really great mentor in my life.
Mm.
And I had that opportunity to essentially work with, not the biggest budget in the world, but a budget,
Mhm.
and like help them create a lighting rig for what they wanted to go, into the future. When COVID hit, they really took it as an opportunity to upgrade their, live streaming capabilities. And that meant, upgrading the lighting. We purchased a state-of-the-art lighting control console. We had a much, when I started, it was primarily a conventional lighting rig, your old school pars, gels. By the time that I kind of started to phase out doing as much there, we had, 50 universes of pixels. We had, a full lighting programming surface, moving lights, smoke haze, like we really did quite a big transition. And I was really honored and grateful to be a part of that because I learned so much. And I was able to make mistakes in a safe environment, an environment where people like cared about me and were willing to mentor me through, when I didn't, you know, do the right thing all the time. Right. And that was really crucial, to be in a safe environment before going out into some, this world that can be a little bit harder and where there's more consequences for it.
I do know. I do know. I mean, we all have a learning curve and a learning progression. I know in the church world,
For sure.
what you were doing. I mean, that's kind of that. You guys were giving quite a bit of opportunity and leverage by responsibility, as opposed to like the way I send a lot of people through stagehand work, where it's like ground level
Yep.
stuff, and it's safe in that it's neck down and it's labor and you can learn that
Yep.
way. But what a treat, yeah, man, to get to have your hands on some really high responsibility and then be able to push the limits of yourself, because that is what growth is all about,
Yes,
is
for
being
sure.
able to make those
Mm.
mistakes, because you're putting your best foot forward, and having the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
So you're 16 years old, well 17 I guess at this point,
Mhm.
right? You finished high school, you're working in the
Yeah.
church,
Wow.
you have the relationship at Strictly. How much research are you doing at this point, outside the church world, in the touring professional world? Was it even touring at this point? I mean, did you think
Yeah.
touring?
Yeah. So I originally thought Broadway. I was very close to New York. You know this about me, Kenny. I love theater. I love Broadway. I grew up seeing a lot of shows, both in New York and, and the community. And originally, I started reaching out to Broadway lighting designers and programmers and assistants. Um, During COVID, I realized that people on Broadway weren't working. it was shut down. And I basically started cold emailing a lot of these Broadway people. And I learned so much. I had the opportunity to speak with Zoom with a lot of these people. I would reach out, I have an email template that I used. I'd
Okay.
change up the names, a couple little details,
Okay.
but I sent these out en masse. I sent quite a lot.
Okay.
And I got most got me responses.
Like, wait,
and a lot.
You said that you sent them out en masse. Did you literally blind copy and send one, or did you?
Oh, no.
Okay, good.
No. It was, no. I always very strategically, found the people that I was interested in and sent it. When I probably sent about maybe 25, 30 emails to Broadway professionals.
Okay.
And I chatted with a lot of those people.
What did you say?
Sorry?
Emails. What did you say in those emails? Kind of.
I would start with a quick introduction about myself. I'd be like, I'm a 16, 17-year-old kid who really loves light, and I have seen your work on whatever show. Right? I really prioritize people who I've actually seen their work. Cool. And I would ask if they would be open to having a 15-minute Zoom or a call with me, just so that way I can get some of their wisdom as I was looking to things like college for lighting and the next steps. That was kind of the main structure of it.
Were you thinking of college?
Yes, I was. Yeah, at that time I really thought that I would go on to university for lighting. And what I learned, I love those conversations with Broadway folks. I still do. But what I did learn was the more that I chatted with these people and the more that I met all of these lovely humans, some of whom are still very good friends and mentors, I started to learn that this world maybe wasn't what I wanted to pursue, at least right away. It's a more challenging environment to get started as a younger person. And it really heavily involved, going to university. And then, you would start as an assistant associate on Broadway, or you'd start on the smaller shows, you'd work your way up, and that's fine. I loved that. But I just kind of started to feel that maybe this wasn't the immediate right thing for the future, because I also was unsure about college and university at that time. I was kind of going back and forth. So I was just curious. I wanted to know my options. And so I started reaching out to some concert designers. I think the first person I reached out to was Tony Caparelli of Billie Eilish lighting design and programming fame. I love Tony.
You did it the same way?
Same way. I found his website. I basically would Google these people's names. I'd be like, Tony Caparelli lighting, right? And I'd see what socials would come up.
How'd you even know?
Yeah,
you just Google Billie Eilish lighting designer. Did you find PLS?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, I was subscribed to a lot of industry magazines. So yeah, like PLSN, Live Design, those kind of places was where I was able to get a lot of both my Broadway credit lists and then when I moved on to touring.
Okay.
Yeah, so I reached out to Tony and he graciously said, yeah, let's chat. Let's take 30 minutes. And he was the first person that actually kind of initiated another conversation after that. I told him in that conversation that I really wanted to learn Vectorworks, which is a drafting program for the world of lighting, entertainment, and outside of that, but in this case, lighting and entertainment. And he was like, well, great. He's like, here's what I want you to do. You have the software. He's like, go design a basic stage. I want a band on that stage. I want 4 sticks of truss. I want some lights on there. And then I want that on like a sheet view. Bring it back to me in a week and let's go over it. Let's chat about it. And then, I'll give you some feedback. And we did that. Wow. And that was so kind of him, first off, so kind of him. And yeah, it was such an incredible experience. And now Tony is one of my really good friends. We've met up several times. And
so what happened?
He, yeah. So after that, when I went back to him and with that plot and everything, and he gave feedback on it, and we just kind of initiated this real mentor-mentee conversation. We texted quite a bit. I would, ask him questions both about the industry and then, more specific things within the lighting world. And we just kind of stayed in touch through his projects. And now we're really good, like I said, really good friends. We were actually just texting before this. He often now will ask me questions about certain softwares and stuff that I am more like proficient in than he's had the opportunity to work on. So it's really, really fun for kind of that relationship to, have gone full circle and to be able to share knowledge back to this person who really kickstarted a lot of my journey.
Yeah, well, and I just to that point though, that's what relationships are all about. It's about serving the other person as you can and as they need. I mean, and
For sure.
you did it in the beginning and you're continuing to do it now.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that through this, because I emailed a lot more people after that. I really started going into more of the concert world. Um, I was never looking for a job. That was never ever something that I was trying to do. What I was trying to do was meet new people and start developing that, connections of relationships for when, in a year or two I was employable, I could go to and be like, where do you have any recommendations, right? This kind of stuff. I was really just trying to develop my network and the people that could help support me as I was stepping into this world. But I was never going to them being like, hey, can you put me out on a tour? Hey, can you, get me out in your next TV show kind of thing?
Yeah.
And yeah, so Tony was the first of many in that category. One of whom that I was able to chat with was Willie Williams, who designed U2's Joshua Tree Tour. So that was really, really full circle for me. And like, yeah, totally one of my, I kind of fanboyed a little bit over Willie Williams. Such a nice gentleman.
Were most of these Zooms that you asked for and they were willing to jump on a quick Zoom?
Yeah. We would set up time. Sometimes it would be the next day. Sometimes it would be a couple weeks later, depending on people's schedules. But yeah, it was Zooms. I chatted with Brad Schiller, who wrote the books that kind of started me when I was really diving into stuff. Yeah, lots and lots of people. I mean, honestly, there's so many people that I can't remember every single person I've talked to. But most of them, the conversations were really helpful, and people gave me lots of advice. Some of it conflicting, some of it, there's lots of stuff for me to sift through. But some, a select few really became really close mentors. People like Tony, and several others. Through those conversations. But
I just want to kind of people have done that with me as well. We have somebody here in Crew Coach that literally found one of my books in a Sacramento library and then did the exact same thing you did. They reached out to me and asked me to get on a Zoom call, and I did. Yep. So we at the top pros are a lot more accessible than you probably think.
Yeah. And it's one of the first things that I, first off, now I get some of those emails with people finding my work and being like, hey, can we chat, or do you have any advice? And I love that. I always try to, to help out as much as I can, because it's, how I started. So I love that. But yeah, I mean, I think that is so crucial to understand. Like, in this digital age, there's so many more resources available. You can contact, you might look at the shows that you want to be a part of, or this career that you want to be a part of, and being like, wow, I can never get on a project like that. I can never, get on stuff like that. And I never thought that way. I always kind of figured that if I had relationships with the people that helped create this, that at some point, somebody somewhere would probably, ask me to help them out, or, allow an opportunity for more growth.
And that's an important point right there, because I hammer this into our Crusaders. It is about intention. It is about the intention. It is about where is your heart and what's your intention with wanting to develop this relationship. If it's about career, it will be received. If it's about gig, money, it will be put on the shelf with the rest of them.
110%. 110%. Yeah.
So
yeah,
I remember having sorry, go ahead. Elaborate on that.
No, you I feel like what you're leading towards will probably be better.
Well, no, I just remember having a conversation with you when I first met you, because I first met you at the rehearsals for this Jonas Brothers tour in Rock Lidditz, and you had told me, you were like,
my first time in Lidditz.
It was your first time in Lidditz.
Yeah, very cool space.
It is a very cool
Yeah.
space. But you were telling me that at some point during this journey, and I feel like maybe this is that time frame where you saw me launch Crew Coach last
Yeah.
October, a year ago.
Yes.
And,
Yeah,
yeah,
that sounds right.
and you were saying that like you considered joining, but then when you heard and
Mhm.
saw my content, you were like, well, I'm already kind of doing those things, which it is
Yeah,
exactly right. You were building the right relationships.
yeah.
You were getting that ground level experience. Like I even
Yeah.
send people the church route too. I mean, I do push people to stagehand, but churches is something that I actually do encourage people to go
Yeah.
and be involved in. And so you were already doing all the things that we encourage our crusaders here to do. How did at that point, where were the
Yeah.
when was the reins given to you of that next level, like my first big
Mm.
concert project?
Yeah. Yeah. So after I graduated high school, again, I couldn't work for the industry. I actually took about a month of that summer after I graduated, and I went to Mexico for not for a vacation or anything, but I actually went as a service project to a community there that kind of came through my church and this kind of stuff. And that was really like fun to be completely outside of the world that I'd known for so long. It was kind of like a good separation of chapters between
Yeah,
like this
yeah.
learning chapter and this launching chapter. It's kind of a random thing in the middle. But when I came back from that, I was really, raring to go, so excited.
Yeah.
And I started putting feelers out during that time frame over the summer when I was in Mexico, and before that, even like kind of right after I graduated. And I had a lead on a theater club tour that wanted me as lighting director. I basically found this person on Facebook who
Okay.
was like, hey, our company, this is a fairly well-known production firm out of Nashville. Uh, our company is looking for some more freelance lighting directors. We have lots of tours going out. We need more people. And so I reached out and I had a lovely conversation with their lead production director and lighting designer who programmed most of the shows for this company. And he was like, great. He's like, can you hold these dates for this tour? He's like, you sound like you know what you're doing. This is a short tour. We'll give you a shot, And I was like, thank you. That sounds great. And anyway, that tour was supposed to head into rehearsals in September. And when I got back from Mexico, and I think we actually went on like a family vacation or something. So like I got back from vacation and I was going to head out like the week or so after. And I got the call that the tour had gone in a different direction last minute. We all kind of know these conversations, right? But it was the first kind of experience that I had in the challenges of this industry, right? And
Yes.
how,
I want
right,
to
like how, yeah,
I want to stop you because
yeah,
that is a very commonplace thing, man. I always like to say, don't like you can't even
yeah.
believe you got the gig until you're sometimes on the bus. Did they tell you why?
Yeah, I believe that a previous relationship that the artist had with a lighting person had come up, and they wanted this person.
Did they
It
know
was a
how
fair
old you
enough.
were?
They did not know. I at no point did that conversation happen.
Of
Um,
course. And let me
it's
ask you too, step back right before
yeah,
that Facebook reach out and all that opportunity. What did putting feelers out look like? What did that actually look like? What did that mean?
yeah. Well, for me, it meant starting to like text and email some of the people that I'd had connected with, people like Tony, um,
Good.
places like upstaging, some shops, that kind of place, and just starting to like put these emails out to these connections that I had made, being like, hey, I'm starting to look for projects this fall. If you have any opportunities for me to shadow, or something that you feel like would be a good fit, I would absolutely love to work with and learn from you. Those kind of conversations were
Okay.
what I kind of slowly put out in the world.
And in the intro to those emails, I mean, in order for them to see what was right for you or shadow or something, did you tell them that you were young and you were, just finished high school? Like, did you
Yeah,
how much of that
yeah.
backstory did you get into?
If there were people who I'd already connected with or who knew me, they kind of already knew that. So I didn't need to include that in everything. But for some that, were more like companies or places that didn't know that, then yeah, I explained a little bit more about me. I had a resume. I tried to make it look as impressive as I could. I won't lie. But yeah, and a lot of those places were like, when you are at a place where you're able to hop on a show the next week, fill out an application, fill out this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Or connect with us. A lot of the people I connected with were like, totally, if we hear of anything, we'll send it your way, I will say that not being Nashville based was originally something I saw as a challenge, especially as a young lighting director. A lot of smaller tours are looking for Nashville based people only. But I kind of decided pretty early on that I wasn't comfortable with moving to Nashville quite yet. And I kind of set that as a boundary for myself from a career standpoint. But yeah, so I had this opportunity from a smaller tour that ended up not happening, and that's fine. I at the time it was really hard. I won't lie. It was my first taste at the rejection, and it wouldn't be the last. But I will say that out of that opportunity, I sent an email to a group that I was really initially attracted by because I saw these names on so many large scale shows, so many big productions, TV, concert touring, but I never saw them do a ton of promotion. Like their socials were pretty much non-existent. Their website was a singular page with some text on it. And I was really intrigued by that. I was like, these people seem almost unreachable. So I decided to test if they were, and they weren't. They responded to my email very, very quickly. And they were like, we don't have any projects at the current moment, but we would love to chat with you because we just like getting to know new people entering our industry.
Yeah.
So we set up, another of these Zoom chats, pretty standard to what I'd done before. And then my friend Adam Bisco called me and he said, I just want you to know, he's like, I'm out on an award show right now. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was a country show. And he's like, this team, they just came over and they handed me your resume. And because it had me as one of, like a reference on the resume. And they were like, hey, is this kid any good? And he's like, he has the passion. And he was like, dude, he's like, I think they're going to offer you. He's like, I think they're going to offer you something. He's like, I'm not sure, but I think they're going to offer you something. And he's like, and if they do, he's like, this team is really, really good. He's like, I would definitely take this one if I were you. And I was like, really good. So I went into this call with them having a little inkling. And we spoke for like 20, 30 minutes. And at the end of it, they offered me a support programmer role on the American Music Awards at the Microsoft Theater in LA last year. Pretty big television award show. And that became my first like real professional experience, which is a little crazy on one of the largest award shows in the United States. And I walked in, I learned so much on that show, and that team was so kind.
I've done that.
They gave me a lot of grace. Yeah. I walked in and they were basically like, perfect, you're here, get to work. And I sat down on that console and I learned so many things. I learned how to talk on radio. That was one of the big things I had no clue about before. Like what's the language, right? What the heck does what's your 20 mean? I was like, what is it? What are they asking? I was like, what are they asking? Yeah, and I got thrown into the fire a little bit, and to be honest with you, I left that gig, my role in that was I worked with the crew. I basically made sure we had about like 1,000 intelligent lighting fixtures on that show, not counting all of the pixel tape and all the craziness. And I was in charge of working with the crew to essentially make sure it all worked. Also, I programmed and worked with a lot of the like band ads, we call them, like the additional lights that each act might bring with them that get wheeled onto the stage. During the show, I was basically on a console, on a radio with the crew, testing those in between, breaks, making sure that everything was working so that the lead team could creatively do what they needed to do and not worry as much about the physical implementation of that. And I learned a lot. There were some times when I, didn't do the best, but I'm very, very grateful for the grace that they gave me and the opportunity that they, provided for me to learn. And I won't lie.
Yeah.
No,
please go ahead.
I was just going to say that I won't lie. Like after I left that gig, I felt a little like maybe I had been thrown too much into the fire. I didn't know what their expectations were. And I kind of left that gig feeling like, maybe this is going to lead to nothing, maybe this is, whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, what a wonderful thing to say, because I just want to say, especially to you Crusaders, everyone goes through this their first gigs. Sometimes first couple gigs. But like that, I talked to one of our Crusaders, and she went through the same thing on her first tour, where she was just like, man, I felt like exactly what you said, that maybe you were a little bit out of your league, so to speak, in that regard.
Yeah.
Did those folks know? I mean, they would have had to once you filled out the paperwork, that you were 18 years old. 18 years old doing the AMAs.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely barely. I think I turned 18 on September 1st, and that was like in early November. And it did. I actually don't think that as a couple of the team knew, but it didn't really spread through the camp, that one, as much. I think actually after the show, we all went out and we did a big meal with all the lighting directors and programmers. And that's where some of the people found out that I was 18. I remember one of the head lighting directors, who was actually like one of those personalities that was a little bit more difficult. And someone that I really had to learn, and I actually love him. At first I thought he was just being hard to me because I was a newer guy, and then I found out that that's just how he treats everybody. But a lovely, lovely person. That was where like most of the team found out that I was 18. They were like, "What? We hired you?"
Yeah. In that capacity too. What a trip, man.
Yeah.
So what happens next?
So I left that gig feeling a little like unsure about what they thought about me. I waited a couple days. I knew that some of them were like flying out the next day to head to their next project, so I let it simmer. And then I sent some follow-up emails to the lighting designer, the head guy on that show, a guy named John Kushner, who I love. I love John Kushner so much. And I also sent some follow-ups to the programming team that brought me on in the first place. And I got some lovely emails back that were like, "You did a great job." And then the programming team was like, "Hey, can you hold," I think it was like January 20th through the 30th or something. They were like, "Hey, can you hold this for us?" And they also said something in that email that was really meant a lot to me. I said, I was like, "I'm really grateful for all of your mentorship and support, especially in the moments when I was really learning how to physically do a lot of these things." And they were like, we really like you as a person. They're like, and we're willing to teach and show you how to, how to do a lot of these things, but because you're you and we really like you, we're willing to take that time and show you how to do this and provide the mentorship to do this. And that meant a lot to me, because it set some of those like qualms that I had about, oh my gosh, they probably hated how I did and all this kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah, but bigger than that though, I say this all the time, man. These people are not hiring the role just to be filled. They're hiring you in the role. And if they've never met you, they're gonna rehire you or refer you because of you in the role. Obviously you want to be great and skilled, but like at the same time, there's this level of humility and empathy and work ethic, and you have that, man. I work with you, so I can confirm this. That must have felt great. So what's next? I mean, was it the January gig?
Yeah, so they originally reached out about like a week in late January, and I thought it was a little strange because January tends to be a little bit of a harder month for live events. There isn't as much touring going on, as much TV. So I was a little confused. And then they revised the offer and they said, actually, if you would be available, we would love to have you for that original January dates, but also going into like the first 2 weeks of February. And at that point, I had an inkling as to what the project was. I did start to freak out a little bit about it. But they ended up offering me the same role, a support programmer role, for 3 weeks in Glensdale, Arizona, for the Super Bowl halftime show with Rihanna. And that show, I won't lie, ever since I was a kid and watching, I think the first one I watched was Lady Gaga's halftime show performance, I was like, this is a show I want to work on. I mean, like that was like a career goal for me. like I was like, if I ever get to work on one of these shows, that
was your second
it's
gig.
going to be amazing.
The
Yeah.
AMA?
And it literally was the second major project that I worked on. But I should back up, and I should say that before that, so after AMAs and before Super Bowl, I decided to take a supermarket job. And this is the only time that I have like really worked for money in a non-entertainment related capacity. I stabbed the rotisserie chickens. Like I stabbed them so that way they could get, I mean, it was really gross. Looking back, I'm like, super, super gross, but that I only was there for like 6 weeks. And then I'm pretty sure they all joke about me because I'm the kid who left for the Super Bowl and never came back. But yeah, that was what I did. I stabbed chickens for 6 weeks, and then I went and I did the Super Bowl. And that really, first off, it humbled me a lot because I was like, I just did the AMAs, I'm gonna do the Super Bowl. And I was having like that kind of humbling minimum wage experience on,
And
a supermarket job, very non-glamorous.
You did that because you needed the money, or you were still living with your parents?
Yeah, I didn't need the money. I just wanted something to do. I wanted to be busy,
I gotcha.
And it was probably not what I would have chosen having looked back, but it was something, that I'm really grateful for. It's a very unique experience that allowed me to be really grateful moving forward when I actually got paid to do what I love to do, yeah, so now I am that kid who went to the Super Bowl and never came back there. But yeah, so I had the opportunity to work on the halftime show, a long time, 3 weeks for a 13-minute show. Again, in a similar role, working with the crew to make sure the rig worked. But really, both AMAs and Super Bowl allowed me to get to know the team, the programming team, really well, and getting to learn how to do, like, you're going from me programming, 8 moving lights at church to having 800 moving fixtures, right? Like, how do you scale that? And how do you do that efficiently, right? Like, I knew how to do a lot of stuff, but I didn't know how to do it efficiently and, in a manner that was needed in these professional productions. So on Super Bowl, we set up a pre-visualization suite in like a large closet in the stadium somewhere where we had TVs, we had programming consoles, and we could program the whole show without needing to be on the field. And I spent hours in there sitting behind the lead programmer, just watching him program and like watching how he did what he did, and that was one of the really incredible things about that opportunity, was just getting to learn how to do all of this. So we did Super Bowl, we did the halftime show. What most people don't know, this is a little tidbit, if you watch the halftime show, our hazers broke, or actually they didn't break, they got unplugged right like during the first half of the game. And so like the transition happened, it's only about 12 or 13 minutes to get the show out onto the field. And we were like trying to fill the room with smoke for all the lights to make them look pretty, and there was no smoke coming out. And we were having to figure that out on the fly. Now that was actually, looking back, kind of stupid and fun, but at the time it was not fun. But it's always the little things. That show looked so good on camera, looked amazing. It was a beautifully designed show by all the programmers, directors, and the designer as well. I mean, it looked so good. But there's always those little pieces. I have so much insight into that show. People don't realize how held together with duct tape these shows are, as I like to say.
I can confirm, and in all
this.
areas. Well, and look,
very true.
So you just built up some crazy clout. The AMAs, the Super Bowl. Yeah. You've really grown into someone that's a learner, someone that's growth focused and growth minded, and has learned how to communicate and learn how to learn. I mean, sitting over the mentor's shoulder, sometimes people be looking at the clock the whole time and you're like soaking it in. So at that point, I mean, you were in with this team, right? I mean, did they have something lined up on the table? What was next?
No, not right away, actually. Right after that, I had my first real touring experience because one of the lighting directors on the Super Bowl, who I didn't know previously, but now is a good friend and mentor, he worked for a vendor called Solotech, and he was a Solotech rep. And he was like, we have a small tour going out, a club tour, and their lighting director cannot make the first week of rehearsals and then like the first couple shows. And he was like, can you do it? It starts in Canada in 5 days after the show, after the Super Bowl. I think it was like 5 or 6 days after that. And I was like, sure. So he gave me a plane ticket and I flew out. And it was my first touring experience. We had into rehearsals. I was the only lighting person on that tour.
Right.
Small club tour. So I did everything. I ran the feeder. I worked with the hands every day to set the rig up. It was actually a pretty substantial tour package for only having one person on the show. Like it was a rough one. We would load in at 7 a.m. and because it was the EDM show, we wouldn't finish till like 12:30 and our out would go until 2, 2 or 3. So it was a long one for sure, but it taught me so much about how to do a lot of that and also how to communicate with stagehands and
live on the road.
Again, just first time on a bus, for a very short period of time. Right after that, I was offered a arena tour. It was going to be my first arena tour for a very large Afrobeats artist. And that came through a recommendation from the folks that I did Super Bowl with. And I was actually at the airport about to literally like 15 minutes away from boarding my plane when I got the phone call that the tour was canceled. And there was some sort of like customs or like immigration issue for the artist or something. And the whole tour, 6 weeks, would cancel. I mean, the whole show was there. Like I had photos, the rig was up in the arena for us to walk into rehearsals and, they canceled it. And I also learned some really valuable things about contracts on that show. Because I lost literally 6 weeks of work. I did not work at all during that time frame because I spent the rest of that time playing catch up, trying to figure out what I would do next.
Yeah.
Right. And
hold on. And to that point, by the way, it's one reason why I encourage our crusaders to be in constant conversation and be building relationships and maintaining a relationship throughout all the time, even when you have a gig.
110%. 110%.
Yeah, because these things are not uncommon. I mean, I talk about the story of when I was in Bieber rehearsals, and we did a month of rehearsals. We finally go home, we all pack, and then we get a call saying, "Hey, the tour is being canceled." Like even something like Bieber, like you never know.
Yeah, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I actually had in between AMAs and Super Bowl, I was offered another support programmer role for, I think it was AGT. It was like the filming of AGT, America's Got Talent in Vegas. And then like a week before that show, that got canceled as well, I think. So, it is something that kind of I was forced to understand pretty early on. And it really, if anything, it motivated me more to really continue to build my network and to prepare. That the spring was pretty light for me because I had really counted on that arena tour. I was able to get a smaller country tour, theaters primarily, and some outdoor festivals with a group called Lady A. It was for Lady A.
A smaller tour. Come on, that's Lady A's a relatively big tour. How many trucks?
They were. No, we were all one truck. And we were one truck, and all of the crew was on one bus actually.
Right.
It was a small theater tour. It definitely not their biggest. They really wanted to do a more intimate tour. That was kind of the design.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it was my first time in like a full rehearsal room for a tour. We were there for like 4 or 5 days. We kicked off at the Ryman Auditorium. We had 2 nights there, which is so cool. I mean, it's such an iconic venue.
Who was the vendor?
Really, really cool. That is a great question. IPS.
IPS.
It was IPS out of Nashville.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so on that tour, it was me and then one tech. So I kind of went up a little bit from my last tour. I still did, some of the load in, and then my console stuff, but it was a little bit more hands off for me than the last one. And also on that tour, I learned the very valuable skill of how to call follow spots, which is an essential for the lighting director position. And that was my first time. And I have to say, I have to give a shout out here. If you are trying to become a lighting director and you want to learn how to call follow spots, which is an essential part of the job, Libby Gray, who is a lighting director, has a YouTube series about how to call follow spots. And I watched this series back to back before Lady A. And I don't think that anybody realized that our opening night at Ryman Auditorium was the first time that I'd ever called follow spots. I mean, I wasn't the best follow spot call in the world, but if you didn't know that was my first time, you wouldn't have known that. So very grateful to her for creating that series.
I love that. Libby, for you lighting crusaders.
Libby Gray. I believe the channel is called How to Call Follow Spots with Libby Gray.
Yeah.
Very easy to remember.
Stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, so out after that, I mean, that was like, it was country tour, you know. I flew from my place in Connecticut. We did, you know, 2 shows every weekend. It was only for their tour actually continued. They ended up getting somebody Nashville based. I was only brought on to kind of help cover for them for this first couple weeks. I'm still really close to the tech on that show. I really, really liked. We still chat. After that, but while we were in conversations, while we were during that tour, so I think it was like the second week I was out with them, I started having conversations with a designer named Brian Vaughn and Nick Whitehouse, which are quite well-known names in the industry. And I was like, I just kind of reached out to Brian and Nick, and I was like, hey, you know, would you like to chat? Like I've done so many times before. And I chatted with them, and at the end of it, Brian, they offered me the role of lighting director for Carrie Underwood's Vegas residency in June. They actually originally offered it to me for the entire year. They were like, do you want to do Carrie for the rest of 2023? And it was my first time getting any sort of like solid job offer, right? Where it's like, hey, if you're decent and we want to keep you around, sure, you can do the rest of the year, you know, at least.
You spoke with Graham on that one?
Graham?
Yep, Graham Holmes.
Yeah. Graham Holmes. Yeah,
they
Graham is good. That
team before. They actually literally offered me that same gig right before the Jonas Brothers.
Really? Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I really like that team. I think I also at that same time around May, I think it was actually like literally 2 days after I told that I was interested in Carrie and chatted with them, I got the offer for Jonas Brothers through the team that I'd done Super Bowl with. They were like, hey, it's pretty much the exact same creative team in terms of programming for Jonas.
It was Eric, right?
Would you be open to yeah, it was Eric Marchwinski, who's one of my dear friends and really good mentors. And then Mark Humphrey is also the programmer who programmed Super Bowl as well. I love both of them very dearly.
You know, me and Eric did Sarah Bareilles together. Or was it Sarah Bareilles?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Need to Breathe.
Oh, Need to Breathe. Okay. Yeah. Need to Breathe was a cool design.
Actually, I think it was Sarah.
I'm pretty sure. I think that, I mean, he's done a lot of shows, a lot of projects.
But that's
cool.
A lot of the same circles.
Yeah. So that offer was really incredible. And of course, I actually didn't know it was Jonas Brothers at first. He told me a date range, and this was before the tour was actually announced. So it was kind of hush hush. And I kind of guessed. I was like, well, this is going to be Jonas Brothers. I used my intuition based on what I knew was going out and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, yes. But yeah, so I did a month of Carrie shows in Vegas. It was more like 2 weeks, but we were there for a month because of rehearsals. And that show was really interesting because it's a Vegas sit down, right? It's not a tour. I did not call follow spots on that show. It was all automated. I basically just sat there and hit like 3 buttons in the entire show. The show was all time coded. It all ran pretty much by itself. I was more there for when stuff went wrong and to take, you know, the hits when stuff went wrong. But yeah, it was a really great experience. I really like that team. But I kind of decided that the vibe within the team wasn't an amazing long-term fit for me. It was fine for a little bit, but I decided that I kind of wanted to move on. And that's kind of why Jonas was a really exciting opportunity for me, because I was like, I have a feeling I already kind of knew of you, and I knew of some of the other crew that was going to be doing Jonas, and I was like, I feel like this team is going to be really good. I'm going to like being part of this camp.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did Carrie for a little bit. I did some festivals with her as well. You know, that's always fun, being there at 2 a.m., you know, in the fairgrounds, just me programming lights. That's always an experience. And yeah, really, really cool experience. And then couple weeks off, and then I came out for this. And here we are.
And
Now
here we
we're
are,
out on
man.
Jonas Brothers.
Yeah, well, what a trip, man. And I'm glad that we got to do this career chat today because, talking about where you come from really gives you some perspective about what's possible for you. And it reminds you of the work that you've put in. And it's important, man. And I think what you're doing and how you're doing it, moreover than anything, is it's huge, man. You're really an inspiration for the next generation. You're an inspiration for the current generation. There are a lot of I even posted about it today on my Facebook. There's just a lot of sloppy work out here, and I consider this the big leagues, man. And even though you don't have the 20 years of experience that I do, man, you certainly act like it, man. And your work speak for itself. You speak for itself, and I wouldn't have brought you in here to do this otherwise. Aside from being a garlic farmer in Connecticut, what is your career goals? What is your
I
career
do.
goals?
Yeah, my family does farm garlic on in our little 5-acre farm in Connecticut. It's one of the Martin family things. I I actually have to say, I recently was nominated for a Parnelli Award, which Parnelli is the awards for touring. I'm very, very excited about this, and I only say that because I also did an interview with them, which is out in this October's 2023's issue of the magazine. It just came out. And I kind of share a lot of what we've talked about today as well. So, if you want to go see some photos of me, I
Yeah.
guess that's where it is. But I also share in there that when I look to the future, right, I'm really excited. I'm really young. There's a lot more things for me to go do and explore. I am excited to step into more creative roles. I love touring. I love doing this, but I'm also excited to step into more lighting programming roles where I'm hands-on programming songs, making creative decisions. Jonas has actually allowed me to do this a little bit. The Jonas LA medley at Dodger Stadium was all programmed by yours truly. And it's honestly, touring on being on a tour of this size is amazing for me to be able to hone my skills as a lighting programmer because I have access to an amazing lighting rig on a day-to-day basis and control where I'm able to pretty much every day after I, do kind of my work checklist that I need to do to get everything ready for show. I'll spend 20 or 30 minutes and I'll just program, maybe I'll pick out a song on my playlist that I want to program and I just practice becoming efficient and also learning new techniques and how to create stuff. But yeah, I want to step into more lighting programming roles, more creative roles. I am really blessed to, be aligned with a team over at Silent House, Silent House Studios, who are the design team behind Jonas and most of the, large scale productions you see.
Yeah.
So I'm very inspired by a lot of their creative directors. And I'd love to kind of step into more roles like that in the future. I'd love to step into more TV as well. I have some more TV stuff lined up in the near future. I had the opportunity when we were in Vegas with Carrie Underwood to do all the lighting programming for her Sunday Night Football Open, which is currently airs every Sunday night. And that was really fun because it wasn't a live TV performance. It was like something that we did multiple takes of,
Yeah.
each shot, right? And so lighting programming for something like that, and that show was really tight to program in terms of time. Basically everything they asked for, they needed 5 seconds ago, so they were all really happy with how that turned out. And I was really grateful for the opportunity to, practice more of my skills and be more creative. But yeah, I'm excited for the future. I personally don't plan on touring for forever. I would love, I kind of have like a 5 to 10 year time frame for this. I would love to kind of maybe even sooner than that. We'll see what life kind of takes to us, but I'd love to step into more creative roles kind of in that frame. I would potentially like to go into real estate, something non-entertainment related. I'm very entrepreneurial. You know, maybe I'll buy a laundromat or something. I don't know. I don't quite know what is there, but I do know that I've really been blessed. It's not something any of this, I don't take it for granted. Um I try to share as much as I can with others and help others along their journey, because I really want as many people as possible to be able to step into this position as well, no matter what your age. I think even if you're 40, 50, however old, and you want to start doing this, I think that what I did is still a very viable option. You have to really want it and be willing to work towards it. I've tried to mentor people who they say that they want to step into these roles and to do these things, but their actions don't show that, and they're not willing to take any sacrifices or really take any steps towards doing that. And you have to have both of those components if you want to really dive into this.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you a question, which you really just answered it. Like, what advice would you give somebody that's just starting out in this path? And I think that really does say it beautifully. Like you
Yeah.
can do this. The steps that Jonathan took to get to where he's at now, I mean, are replicable. You can absolutely dive into the interwebs and start doing your research, start growing your comprehension, and really dive into a church or something like that, or stagehand, and really learn and ask for the
100%.
responsibility and ask for the ability to,
Mm-hmm.
to get your hands dirty, start reaching out and asking people to pick their brains on a 15-minute Zoom, and being able to replicate that not once, not twice, not 10 times, not 20 times, 25, 30 times, like whatever it takes,
Yeah.
cross industry, like really just being hungry for it. And I think that that's some wise advice. But if you wanted to add to that,
110%. I mean, you said all of that beautifully, Kenny. You
yeah,
know
no,
what you're saying.
it is, it is the truth.
And yeah, and I mean, I would just say that you kind of have to just start doing it at some point. You have to take the leap, and for me, it was a multi-year journey. It wasn't, it does feel like I'm still quite young, I'm only 19, but I have been working towards this for for a while, right? Making these
Right.
connections and getting these relationships. It
That's
wasn't something that came overnight.
6 years.
And especially the skill set.
Spark.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, like if you kind of count that like 16 onwards, like, 2 to 3 years of really diving into the process of making relationships and, like really diving into this,
Yeah.
it does take time, but at the same time, it's also very achievable, and I'm very grateful to be where I am. And I would encourage anybody who wants to get involved in lighting, who might be watching this, to reach out to me. Let's do a Zoom. Let's chat more one-on-one. I'd love to do that. I say that to most of the people that I have the opportunity to chat with. Let's chat some more. I'd love to help you on your journey. I've had the opportunity to pass along work to other people now. The person who is currently out with Carrie Underwood, I actually was someone that connected me and was like, hey, I saw that, I just wanted to get connected. I saw you're working in the industry. And we chatted quite a bit. And I ended up passing along Carrie to him, and, putting his name forward.
Yeah.
Because he developed that relationship with me, and they all go every which way. He's passed me work, he's been like, hey, do you want to do this kind of thing? It's all intertwined. So yeah, I would just say you kind of have to go for it. You never know what is, what is around the bend, but you have to ask for it. You have to take the steps.
Yeah, man, in the right direction. Well, wise word, young fella. I appreciate you so dang much, Jonathan. You know I do, man. It's always a pleasure, friendly face to see stroll by Guitar World, or when I'm out at the stage and I'm getting ready to hand Nick his guitar, I look
Yep.
over and there you are,
Yeah.
pumping out the low fog out there on the B stage. I love it.
Oh yeah.
Well, look,
It's good stuff.
I want to wrap this up. What is your, I'm going to put your, actually, I'll put your email in the description below this.
Yeah, I'll actually give you my website, which has links to email and all of my socials across everything. That's
Beautiful.
very easy to find out how to contact me.
Beautiful. I will put that in the description on below this video. Guys, if you have any comments or questions, comment below. You can put your comment right below and I'll pass it along to Jonathan. If you don't, otherwise, just reach out to him. And man, what a pleasure it was having you in our career chat today here in Crew Coach. It is so awesome. I know that what we're working on here, you are a living example of it. I mean, you are a living example of the Crusader principles that we teach here, and it's really just a breath of fresh air to see in our industry. I'm excited to see where you take your life, man. 19, Jonathan.
Thank you, Kenny. It was so lovely chatting with you. And yeah, I'm really grateful for your mentorship throughout all of this as well. And I'm excited to see what I go on to next as well. I'm as equally as excited as you are.
I bet. All right. Well, that's it, Crusaders. Jonathan, until next time, y'all, go get them.